Attention! The National Weather Service has issued a hurricane warning for the entirety of the National Hockey League. Please stay tuned for further information from the Storm Cellar.
Welcome back to the Storm Cellar. Brad and Ray are with you. It's been a couple of weeks, and Ray, very little has changed.
Yeah, not a lot has changed. Everyone's kind of taking a laid back approach, I guess, in all of this, including the players and agents and stuff like that. It's kind of a wait and see situation. I mean, there's been a few things that have been going on for the Canes, some of which are relatively surprising. But yeah, I know a lot of fans are certainly concerned because they want answers. They keep going to Twitter, keep looking for, those reports that suddenly certain players are actually signed. We're not here, or trades have been made, or whatever.
Speaking of
everyone's anxious. Yeah,
somebody just got laid off and new so
yeah, that's I guess where we get started, frankly, in this whole thing. Tarasenko looked like we had him, and then we didn't, because he was not happy with the arrangements that his agent at the time had made for the move and the signing. He believed he was worth more than what his agent was getting him, and he said, "You're gone." So his agent got canned, and he went to new representation, and now everything's in a holding pattern. No one really knows what is going on, what the holdup is. You would think that with the new agent, all it would take is, okay, this is where we were. This is what you negotiated in the past. And although we're not going to go with that contract and that arrangement, it's something to build on. And it's understandable. Like, here's the thing. I don't hold anything against Tarasenko for his move. It's kind of annoying, yes, but it is his career. And if he doesn't believe he's getting the representation that he deserves or wants, then he's more than welcome to, move on. But here's the thing. Does this shine poorly on Tarasenko in your eyes for being that close to a contract signing and then pulling the plug on it? What's your take on this? Do you think this is do you think it's kind of diva behavior? I don't really know what to make of it. You know what I mean?
So Tarasenko's 31, 32, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
He put up 50 points in just under 70 games last year. I feel like it was like 0.74 points per game, which if you compare him to the Hurricanes would put him around Brett Burns, right?
Right.
The deal that Shay, kind of alluded to, and she didn't say it was signed. She just said that, that's what she was hearing as he was going to. Reportedly was worth like $6 million-ish, 6.5, which is right where it should be for a 1-year deal for a guy of his caliber, who's a little older, who, we don't know what we're going to get from him. And it sounds like he wasn't happy with that. And if he thinks he's going to go to another contender for more money, there isn't one, I don't think. Almost all of the top teams are cash straps, except the Canes is one of the few teams that we're close to the cap, but we know we're going to move out assets, which also luckily we have, hasn't happened yet. But yeah, it's a bit of a diva move, and that's fine. If that's the game he wants to play, he's welcome to go play somewhere else, and we'll fill the hole in some other way. Because, if winning the Stanley Cup is the goal, and I'm not saying guys should take a huge pay cut for, the home team advantage thing or to win a cup, but if the offer of $6.5 million is correct, that's not a pay cut. Like, that's about what he probably deserves for a 1-year deal. Like, that's not offering the guy $4 million. That's offering him $6.5 million to come play. So
Well, and you make a good point, because a lot of the people that and players that were doing signings like Orlov, who only got 2 years, but he did that on purpose because he wants to re-enter again when the cap is bumped up much more. And that's the problem, right? Every team is fighting the cap because uh, it hasn't been increased significantly. I think it was only $1 million
yep.
that was added to the cap this time around, and it's going to be much more coming up in the next
Right.
2
The
years.
prediction
I
is
don't think
in 2
it,
years it should go up significantly if they
yeah,
don't run it to the ground.
and so that's what players are doing, right? Like Orlov is hedging his bets, and he wants to re-enter at a time, you know, and cash in more, and perhaps uh, like I would like to think that Tarasenko is, if he really wants a championship again, if he really wants, he can get into that same sort of situation, just something quick, and
Do you think it
five
could
or
have been
six.
term? Do you think he wanted not a long deal, but a bridge deal? Do you think he wanted 2 or 3 years?
It's hard to say what's in his mind, but that would be certainly another reason
And
why
follow
he
up,
didn't like the deal. Yeah.
I would take him on a year deal, no problem. Would you want
Yeah.
him for 2 or 3 years? I don't know that I would.
Um, well, here's the problem, because if you take him on for 1 or 2 years, that is going to make the signings that are to come in the season ahead that much more difficult to pull off. I'm looking at the re-signing of Aho, which everyone and Don Waddell has said it's going to happen. We're not letting them go anywhere. But yeah, the money, the finances are going to determine, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Whether like an Aho extension is going to would be fantastic. The
Right.
problem is, how much money do you have if you bring in, if you bring in Vlad, if you bring in Carlson, where are you going to
Right.
get the money for all of this?
Yep. And for newer folks, Aho's extension would be for next year. So
Mhm.
1 year deal for Vladimir would be off the books before Aho's extension kicks in. And
Exactly.
that's where the 1 versus 2 or 3 years kicks in. Is hopefully they assign Aho this summer to an extension. The
I'd
8 years,
love to see
9.5
that.
million keeps being around. That does not affect bringing in guys this year. That starts next year.
Yeah,
So
100%.
just
I
to
really,
be really clear.
and thank you for making sure that that's clear. I don't want to muddy the waters any more than it could be, and sometimes the desire to keep him on clouds judgment and statements. So thank you. I appreciate you bringing that up. Look, here's the other thing. We talked about Tarasenko, and we're still waiting on Carlson, whether or not what the Sharks are asking for, what they want. I want Sharks GM, and I'm drawing a blank on his name. He said, and I believe he was quoted, "There's no way we're taking 50%. Like, we're not eating 50% of a cap in a trade. We're just not." Which might be the problem that everyone's looking at here in the bid to get him, because he has such a substantial contract that there's just no way you can bring him in. Even if you dealt 3 or 4 of your really good players, you're still that he's at 11 million, is he not? Like, it's a huge
I
cap
am
hit.
double checking it, sir. Erik
Like
Karlsson
it's
is at 11.5 million
11 and a half. I sold him
for the
short.
next 4
Sorry.
years.
Yeah, and that's just
A lot of
so
money.
much. That's a lot of dough. That's 2 or 3 players minimum. if you're having to free the space off the books or whatever. And he's talented, and he would be great on the defense, of which there's no question about that. His actual defense is certainly questionable, but having that type of firepower and scoring ability certainly would be great. What I wonder is, there would be a lot of cap gymnastics for this one to make it work. How, I could see, and this is going to sound crazy, I could see a four, or at minimum, the only way to do this is a three-way trade, right? Kind of like the way we brought in some of these other players, where was it Trocheck? No, it wasn't. One of the players that we had was traded to one place, and then they ate half the contract. And then I think it was Domi, was it not, when they brought him in?
It was.
The trade went to one team, and Domi and the original took half of the contract. And then
Panthers sucked up half, and Columbus kept the original half.
There you go. And then when the Panthers traded him to us, they kept half of the remaining. And we, you know what I mean? And so maybe that's the way we go. Maybe that's what's so difficult and why it's taking so long. Everything seems to be a holding pattern. You have to find another franchise who would be willing to eat part of a contract of a player they're never going to see skate on their home ice surface, to send them to Carolina. What do you think? I mean, that's really the only way that this can be done, right?
I think, given the 4-year term, I think something like that would have to happen. It sounds like it's the Hurricanes and the Penguins. The Penguins are in rebuilding mode. I mean, Crosby and Malkin are getting older. That's they're not a cup contender, I don't think, in the next couple of years. So, for me, some of this goes back to, do you want to win a cup? Yes or no? That being said, you do have to work out the financials. I think a three-way trade would make sense. That means probably more bodies going out than if it was a straight up deal, right? Because you're going to have to compensate somebody for picking up 50%, or it might be less. I mean, but that certainly would be one option. I would be excited to get EK, but I'm not going to be upset if we don't, because we had a phenomenal defense and we have a phenomenally defensive-minded team.
Yeah.
And uprooted it completely. Like, Orlov is already, is already a major shift in that defense. And to keep making these, make our defense worse in order to try and get offense, I think is the wrong move. I still think that picking up a forward is the right move. I would love to see Taranseko, in part because if we're in on Taranseko, we're out on EK. And one of the few people who's worse on defense than EK is Tony Angelo, who was let go by the Flyers. Politics aside, Tony DeAngelo, Ray, is the first NHL player to be bought out by two different teams.
Yeah, the Rangers.
He's the first player so bad that two different teams said, we're going to pay you not to play for us. And that speaks volumes. I understand that when you pair him with Jacob Slavin here, he had a decent year until towards the end when he became a basket case. But that's, I don't want that. I don't want to. The only place to put him would be on the third pairing to hide how bad he is. And that means that Chatfield has to cover him.
Yeah.
Or Chatfield's gone and somebody else has to cover for him. And it was hard enough for Slavin to do it. And Slavin, the best defensive defenseman in the league.
He is.
I don't get it. The fact that they tentatively were going to trade for him and take on $2.5 million for him, I thought was ridiculous. The fact that they can now get him for whatever they want to sign him for because he cleared waivers, league minimum is $800,000. And I still see people like, oh, I'd love to have him back. Give him $1.5 million. So even if you would love to have him back, why would you pay him $1.5 million? Nobody wants him. He cleared waivers hours and hours ago. There is no deal in place. The league minimum, $800,000. I don't know why he wasn't a league minimum signing last time. It's, you have to deal with agents and things, and you have to, try and play nice. But at the same time, say, look, sorry, like nobody wants you. Like it's you can make $800,000 playing in the NHL for us, or you can go make, $14.50 at McDonald's.
This is a weird one for me because everyone and their dog all said this was a deal that was going to happen, that it was just a matter of time, that that July deadline was going to be the one that that meant that DeAngelo comes back to Carolina. It blows up. It doesn't work out. That is, the optics are not good for the Hurricanes on this one either, because if you believe that you had a deal, then you go ahead and make the deal. And it put Philadelphia in a situation, and Briere, who's doing his job, says, hey, I thought we had a deal. And Don says, sorry, you know what? Things have changed.
Yeah, we're waiting on
our
EK.
end. So we can't do anything. And really, Briere is in a situation where he has to say, look, what are we going to do here? Are we going to keep waiting? We can't afford to keep waiting. We want to move on. I've got a job to do. And so he cuts him. Now, what are the optics for Carolina, who says, no, we can't do this deal, blows it up, and then turn around and try to sign him at 800,000? The optics on that do not look good as far as can you make a deal with Don Waddell and the Carolina Hurricanes with that type of thing? Now, I am not accusing Waddell of that at all. I'm not saying it, but the optics, if we turn around and go sign him, that's exactly the way it would look.
Yeah, and that's us on the outside looking in too, right? That's like the Vladimir looks like he's going to sign.
Yeah,
we don't know how close the deal really was. Like, we know what was reported, and sometimes agents leak things to try and help push things along. His agent might have come out and said, "Hey, this deal is basically done," just to get people like, "Oh, we can't wait to get TA back."
And where would you put him here? That's the other thing.
You have to bury him on the third line. You have to. You can't put him on you have to put him on the third pair and bury him and just hope he doesn't mess anything up. Here's how bad it is. And I don't like John Tortorella. I think he's old-fashioned. I think he's rude. I think he is not a good coach. I have a million problems with Tortorella. I agree with Tortorella on one major thing. John Tortorella played, I think, was the last 5 games of the season with 5 defensemen, Ray.
Yep.
Because 5 defensemen was better than icing Tony DeAngelo.
It says a lot.
And Torts is not the person I would go to and say, hey, this guy makes good decisions, because like I said, I think his style of hockey and what he thinks hockey should be is archaic and anachronistic and needs to go away. But I think he got this one right.
Yeah. I mean, if you're looking at it surprised me a little bit that Philly didn't bring in more of their young guys. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to go down to 5. You could bring up a young guy and still have 6. You know what I mean?
But it's Tort, so you can bring up a young guy, but he's still going to sit on the bench, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's Tortorella.
That's 100% it, right? So it was certainly a statement. It did not look good for DeAngelo in any way, shape, or form. That's a harsh statement.
It is. Do you know what looked good though, Ray?
What's that?
Andrei Svechnikov skating on the ice.
Oh man!
At the WCC, he's obviously he's not doing drills or anything yet, but the man was on the ice. Development camp looked like it went off without a hitch. Looked like they had a great time. They had NC sled hockey in. Had what looked to be a lot of fun. A lot of Caniacs showed up. A lot of pictures on social media. So Svechnikov is on the ice, slowly getting rolling. The Aho extension is out there somewhere. And as of this recording, Brett Pesce is still a Hurricane, which is of the potential things that are going to happen. I would love for Brett Pesce to stay a Hurricane. Yeah. Like I said, it's I think our defensive core got us in part to where we were last year. Like, you get to the Eastern Conference Finals again. You just got you need a front, you need a top 6 guy. You need a goal scorer to get you ahead. And EK is great and he puts up points, but are you really going to have EK on your team making 11.5 and Aho making 9.5 for 4 years?
No, I mean that
just doesn't make sense. I'm sorry.
It doesn't to me. Look, so you brought up 3 things. Let's break them down. I, like you, would love to see Pesce stay if there is a defenseman that I would be okay to let go of in the efforts to bring in another piece for us. It would be Shea, who is also looking for another
love Brady Shea, but if I have to pick, and it's not close for me.
It isn't either for me as well. And I mean, as great as he was with those goals that he scored last season, he's got a great shot and all the rest of it. If you're trying to make space to bring in a guy like Carlson, he's the guy that's you got to send out. You're just getting a less defensive version of Shea. You know what I mean? Because Shea can still play great defense, and he got beat a few times and stuff like that, and that looked bad. But he is nowhere near as bad on defense as EK is. There's no question. So Pesce is the guy that you want to stay. Aho extension, we kind of talked about it. I mean, where I stand. All of Storm Cellar listeners know what I think of him, and I want him locked up. I really, look.
I think we'll hear it soon.
I think we will too. And people will accuse me, like, don't get emotionally involved and tied to certain players, because in the end it is a business. And that is I don't know, it's a lot of people.
It was me.
It's a lot of people. Yeah. And it's a harsh reality. It's a harsh reality that it's very, very few players stay with one team for their entire career. If Gretzky can get traded from the Edmonton Oilers, Aho can certainly be traded. You know what I mean? And it will break a lot of hearts and stuff. It'll break my heart, but I just want to see an extension in the worst way. I love him to death.
According to Tom Dundon, like it's just a matter of getting it done. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they're not under the gun. They have a whole year to get the extension done. I think Aho extension will be the last big move we hear of the summer.
Yeah.
I think we'll get an EK decision. I think we'll get a Taranseko decision. I think those things will be in place regardless of when the Aho extension is signed. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like until they have to file the paperwork with the league, nobody has to know. So
yeah. And the last thing, and as happy and as exciting as it is to see Svechnikov on the ice, it scares the hell out of me. It absolutely does. An injury like the one he suffered that took him out, he's probably like, these athletes, they recover quick. You know what I mean? They're fine-tuned machines, and they've got the best they've got the best recovery system and infrastructure in the world based on these teams, right? Like, it's just the therapy that he has to go through, everything else, his nutrition, his health, everything is great. The problem here, though, for me, is that rushing him back, like I'll be probably the only Caniac who does not want to see Svechnikov on opening night. I want him to go ultra slow and make sure that knee is in great shape. repairing knees, not easy. And coming back from it is not easy. And now it's not quite the Achilles heel, which is even worse to recover from and harder and longer, right? It's not the same. But damn, I just want it to be slow, and that's
it's an 82
over.
game season plus playoffs.
Exactly.
It's no different than Patches.
Right.
If he's ready for the playoffs, that's all we care about. I don't care if he skips October.
Yeah.
I don't care if he skips November. If he's back by December.
Yeah.
But you're right. And I've seen a lot of folks who mention on Twitter and other social media about, like, oh, I tore my ACL and this was my recovery timeline. And Svetch is kind of moving along at those timelines. The big difference for me is if I tear my ACL today, I still got to get up and go to work, next week. I might get a couple of days off, but I have to go grocery shopping. I have to do these things. Svechnikov is a pro athlete. He does not.
Yeah.
Right? The team is going to take care of all those things. All he has to do is recover. And that makes a difference. I'm sure he's fun as, so I feel pretty comfortable. We worry that Patches rushed himself back last year, but I don't know that any of us really know, right? I mean, he was medically cleared. The doctor and Patches, as much as he wanted to play, is not going to get back unless he thinks it's good to go. And it's not like he didn't play, 4 games before a tour, 3 games before a tour again, and he hit a rut. Like if he doesn't hit that rut, maybe Patches gets into a Stanley Cup. We just don't know. So
we don't know.
I'm with you. I don't want him to rush it. But to see him just kind of getting out there and just getting a feel for it is good news. So
it is good news. There was one thing that we kind of glossed over in the way of movements and stuff like this, and that was Brendan Lemieux. That was a signing that no one thought of at all. Did you look at Brendan Lemieux out there and think he was a Hurricane?
If you said to me 3 or 4 years ago, hey, Brad, we're going to bring in a guy who had a podcast that the team basically shut down for being overtly controversial politically. And this person bit another NHL player. Are do you think this guy's coming on board? I'd be like, absolutely not. But after the last couple of years, yeah. Am I surprised? I'm not surprised. I'm surprised at who it was because he wasn't on anybody's radar. But at this point, it's like, when I read, what I thought of, Ray, when I saw the line and went, oh my gosh, the first thing that hit me was Steve Dangle. I don't know if you saw Steve's his video about the incident with Kachuk.
No,
I
didn't.
He said, once is biting, twice is eating.
Very
and that was I was like, oh my gosh, we're getting that guy. Oh.
Yeah, no.
And then I was looking, I'm like, oh, I feel like there's some more here. And I started doing some dives into, a little bit more research about him. Like, oh yeah, this is another one of those guys. Let's not go down this road, but too late.
So
the only good news is he's got to be a 13th forward. You want somebody who, if somebody takes a run at Aho or Teravainen or whomever, will go out there and get gritty. And I mean, they got that. So if he plays more than 30 games this year, I'll be shocked. I mean, he is not better than guys like Jamison Rees who are call up, who are within the AHL last year. So I think this is a move specifically for things like, I know Pride Night is against Florida this year. Like I fully expect to see him in the lineup against Florida. Those are the games that he's going to. When the playoffs come around, I expect he's going to be, a short call up for, if anybody starts taking liberties, because the Canes are not an overly aggressive team. They'll finish their checks and things, but they're not dirty about it. And every team needs sandpaper, and he's your sandpaper guy.
Okay. So when Brad Marchand licked on several opponents, a couple of opponents at least anyway in the past, did you ever think that you would see a player look at that and say, hold my beer? You know what I mean? And
Not
go out and
in the
do something
NHL.
more. Like I did not expect that. So that was the
In an
first thing.
actual beer league, yes, maybe.
Maybe in a beer
Like
league.
if
Maybe.
it was literally hold my beer while I take my shift, maybe, but not in the NHL.
It was just it was crazy, that whole situation. But let me ask you this. I'm going to ask you a question. I've got a theory, but I'm going to ask you a question on it. The end of season, press conference, Rod and Don sitting up there, and the comment was, we want to get heavier. We want to get heavier. We want to play heavier, and so forth. And the signing of Michael Bunting certainly backed that up, because he plays heavy. Do you think, and they call it playing heavy. I don't know if it's heavy or grittier, but do you think that what they learned in the playoffs against the Panthers, do you think that's the direct reason why they signed a Bunting, why they signed Lemieux, guys that are continuously dancing on the line and sometimes falling over that line of hard, gritty play, and where that turns into dirty?
I
For
think
the
it's a
same
direct
reason,
correlation.
yeah, like said, for the exact reason that you said, which was this team, as great as they are, has never been thought of as extra feisty. They're a pain in the arse for every team who doesn't like being forechecked to death, which is every other team in the league, and that's what the Canes do well, right? Forecheck like crazy. But there was never that dirty, dancing the line, right? And now we've got two guys notorious for such things. And so, yeah, what was it? The loss? Was it the sweep by Florida that turned and made these two signings
I think
the way they were?
So the Florida loss coupled with the Rangers loss last year, because the Rangers kind of did the same playbook.
Yeah.
Everything after the whistle that they could get, every penalty, every cross check they could get after the whistle. I mean, we saw that, right? We saw that in several series, and that's not what Rod wants to do, and the guys are having to react to that. Bunting's a huge pickup, right? Bunting played on the top line in Toronto. The guy put up 50 points. Great pickup. Does he play with an edge? Yep. Does he take too many penalties? Probably. So does Svechnikov, who's my favorite player. Like, Svech has got to stop taking sick penalties. And some of that is realistically based upon reputation.
Mm-hmm.
Lemieux is different in that Lemieux is not going to be in the lineup, I don't think, nightly. He's not as good as even guys like Stepan or Nays and those kind of guys, right?
Yeah.
So I think he's a 13th guy. But at the same time, if you know that, okay, we took some liberties with the Canes last time, and tonight the guy who bites people is in the lineup.
Yeah.
you got
just by reputation, maybe.
Right.
Yeah.
Just by, like the guy's a wild card. I don't know what he's going to do. Like, maybe I don't want to put KK into the boards with 2 seconds to go in a meaningless, game that's already been decided. Like, maybe that's not a good idea. So if you look historically, Tampa Bay ended up with 3 cups.
Yeah.
They were close, but they didn't get there until they got heavier and started throwing their weight around, right?
Mm-hmm.
Until they had guys like Kucherov start pushing people around, they didn't win anything. Yeah. I mean, that's it. If you look at the Golden Knights, that's another team. Like, they could throw their weight around. Like, that's not something, Florida was not good all season. And then playoff time came and that's what they were doing. And they were kind of, they were able to kind of bully people. It's the traditional enforcers are gone from the game.
Yes,
but
they are.
The pest kind of guys who are tough, but also can play hockey, guys like Bunting, I hate to say it, guys like Marchand, and Marchand's kind of fake tough, but he's a pest. Like, he gets in your head, like Vincent Trocheck. He, Vincent's not a huge fighter, but like, does Vincent get in your head? Does he rattle you? Yeah, like those guys are imperative, I think, to winning the cup nowadays. So
it's interesting to see him signed on. I wonder about the new players and figuring out Rod's culture and Rod's expectations. We'll see how this all plays out, but it was really interesting. I'm looking forward to seeing how this all plays out. And you're right. I don't think Lemieux is going to be a steady guy. Here's the thing. To me, we're shortchanging Nason a little bit because he was tough. He was gritty. He goes to the front of the
elite.
net, right? Like he's great. He's great. So
he's going to be imperative if the power play is going to work this year.
Well, there's no question. And so we got to have him in the lineup and stuff. But it was like, do you think we had the grit that was there, but we kind of held the reins on the boys?
I think we just needed more. You can't have Nason be the only guy out there who's big and willing to park his butt in front of the net and get physical. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
You had one, but you needed more, and Bunting's going to help out with that. And Brendan Lemieux, if people get feisty, hopefully that's where he fills in his role. So
yeah, for sure. This is, we've done pretty well. We've got good 35 minutes of discussion out of all of this when really nothing is going on.
Very little is happening.
Very, very little is happening. And you and I being, I think your favorite word was loquacious. The both of us and our loquaciousness.
That's me.
Yeah, we can talk forever, but we won't. I know you have something else that you'd like to bring up about our next episode, hopefully, which is coming up in 2 weeks. Tell us about it.
Hoping to talk about the PHF, the new league, the unfortunately the kind of the fall of the the PHF, the PHF sellout.
Yeah.
But hoping to get a guest on who can, give us a little insight into the new league a little bit and get some, explore that and let's talk a little women's hockey next time. So that's my goal.
Love it. We'd love to have it. And we certainly appreciate everyone who takes the time to listen to us. And I just to let you know, I am still in an effort to try to arrange the joining of the superpowers, if you will, in Caniac podcasting and joining us into the Surgecast. Getting us all together, I think would be a phenomenal effort. I'm trying to get that done. And personal issues for me aside, I've had to move out and move in back into the same place. Not, me and my wife had to move out with work around the house and so forth. I am and fully intend to kind of bring a nostalgic posting to us all and remind us of one of the greatest, 3-4 day sessions of hockey by taking you back to the Hall of Fame game and the Stadium Series. We did a lot of recordings. I have them still, and I'm trying to piece it all together into an omnibus entertainment session that will take you back to those points. And it sounds like it's a little bit, the horse is out of the barn. You should just let it go. I don't want to let it go. We talked to so many great people, and it was so much fun. I think it would be great for us to all relive those things. So with that out of the way, we've covered everything that there is to cover. Brad, what else is there to say?
Go Canes.
Go Canes.
Thank you everyone for tuning in. Ray and I greatly appreciate your support in helping us produce an informative and fun podcast. As always, we'd like to say that we believe hockey is for everyone. Whether you're a Caniac or a bunch of jerks, doesn't matter, as we're just a couple of jerks anyway. We would love to hear your questions, comments, and suggestions. We will do our best to answer anything hockey related. You can reach us by email at stormcellar97@gmail.com. On Twitter, we are at stormcellar97, and on Facebook at facebook.com/stormcellar97.